Hello, everyone. This is Melissa from Ripple, and here we have Jaswant Kaur from Deepalia. So, Justin, why don't you introduce yourself and the organization in a nutshell?
Okay, so I'm Jaswant Kaur. I am the executive director of Deepalia, and I would like to tell you that I was basically a company secretary by profession until 10 years ago when I thought, this is not something which I really want to do. So I changed my line and I switched to the development sector. As far as organization is concerned, Deepalia is a 42-year-old organization. It has been working with underprivileged children, women, youth, and the elderly. And the main objective of this organization is to make people self-reliant through its programs and projects. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually wonderful. I mean, your organization has such a long experience. Like you've been helping so many people out there. So that's really great. That's really inspiring, in fact. Um, yeah. So what triggered your team to basically start the organization?
Okay. So this Deepalia was basically founded by seven people who migrated from Kerala to Delhi. And I mean, they were just normal salaried people. They were working as government employees, some of them, and then some of them, they had an experience in the social sector also. So they think that whatever they could become in Delhi, it was basically because they got a good level of education. That was one main reason that they could become successful in the national capital, and that is why they thought of people who were not educated enough to get on a good journey, a successful journey. So they founded this organization called Deepalia to promote education amongst the underprivileged, because they thought education can bring a huge sustainable change in the lives of the underprivileged. So gradually, I'll just share some brief history about the organization. How was it founded? It was basically founded in the drawing room of one of our founding members. So in the mornings, it looked like in a classroom with children. And initially, we started with only 5 kids, and these children were basically children of the neighboring houses. Some of them also were children of the founding members only. Then, as the name spread, the number of children increased to 40, 42, 43, that ways. And the idea with which the organization was started was basically to help the underprivileged with the money or the fees that we get from the richer population. So that was the model that was initially thought of. Then gradually, as the number of poorer children they started increasing, the people who were rich, they started objecting. So they said that we don't want our children to be studying with children who are from poorer backgrounds, who don't have a good socioeconomic background. So so then it was at that particular point of time that the founders, they thought that we will serve only the poor, we will not work with the richer people. So
Mhm.
that was the turning point, I would say. And initially, the plan was to raise money through the richer people and then cater to the needs of the poor. So when this decision was taken, fundraising became a really really important decision to uh, to basically sustain the organization. So the first, I mention that our founders, they were they what they used to do was they used to organize small fairs. I mean, food fairs. So
Mhm.
some people used to come cook foods, and then they sell it on a premium in their religious meetings. That was the way it was. And then gradually, Deepalia started getting popularity. So the first organization that Deepalia was associated was Eco Foundation, and then and the first contribution came in the form of a bus for transporting children from the slums to the school. That was the humble beginning Deepalia had. And gradually, this Eco Foundation continued with Deepalia for around 20 years. And then individual sponsors came in, they started giving in money for the children for education of the kids. And after around 10-15 years, it was realized that education alone cannot help the poor. Basically, there are a lot of other problems in the community. like women are facing so many issues. Differently able children, they are not, being treated well. They are treated like an ill woman in their family. So many other things were there, and we diversified our activities from education to, 6 core areas, uh, which is women empowerment, healthcare, vocational training. We also have founded a home for the orphan children, like institutional care program, and and especially able children also. So these were the 6 sectors now, where we are focusing right now. Yeah, so this is the beginning of Dipalya. We started with 5 children. Now we have more than 350 children. They
Wow.
have passed out of our systems.
Okay.
And when I say 350,000 children, on an average, a child would have spent around 8 to 10 years in Dipalya. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how many years it actually, means to. And when it comes to women, we have touched the lives of more than 18,000 women, and through different programs, through self-help groups, made them aware of certain things, made them financially independent. This is something which is very important, I would mention, because they were highly dependent on their husbands, even for small things, small expenses. So when we started working with women, we organized them into self-help groups, encouraged them to, save money. Of course, initially they borrowed some money from their husbands, but gradually when this money, small money, it became a huge amount. They invested in micro enterprises. They had a good source of income for themselves. So that way, it was a big change in their lives, I would say. And as far as differently abled children are concerned, we have touched the lives of more than 5,000 children. uh, we have made them self-reliant. We have, dispelled those myths which were surrounded against all kind of disabilities, because we deal with multiple disabilities. People, they thought always that differently able children, they will never be able to,
Hmm.
to be on their own. They will never be able to do the activities that they deal with, because that was the biggest challenge. Because they were asked to sit at their homes, just idly. They were never involved in any activity. That was like, if we talk about a bedridden patient, that was how, a differently abled, child was uh, considered.
Okay.
So everything was available on bed. He was never allowed to do anything. He or she was never allowed to do anything on their own. So when they came to our centers, they started, developing gross motor skills, started picking objects, then, putting on their own clothes, buttoning their clothes, using the toilet, all those things, we trained them, and then we enrolled them into the government schools also. And then they came back to us for education, for the support. Some of our children, they have got very good jobs also now. So
Oh, that's
that way is,
so great to
yes.
hear. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your organization has seems to have touched so many lives, like it's really, really help people out there. And I mean, like you said, like there will always be, you already said, there were like so many myths surrounding, and you were able to like really, overcome it. And the fact that you are,
Yes.
empowering women out there, because like you said, I mean, it's very difficult for, women to really become financially, independent, because from such areas, they don't really know that, that's an option for them. So the fact that you said 18,000, and then, I mean, that's not a small number, that's like a huge number, and you've like really done a great thing. Yeah. um
And they have established more than 9,000 micro enterprises. So that ways,
yeah.
and plus, this group, when this self-help groups, they come together, they bring a movement kind of a thing in the community itself. So if a woman is facing some problem, say domestic violence, somebody is facing, so these women will come together, support that lady, support that woman. So that itself, gives a lot of strength to women.
To
So it's
women.
not only about money, but also about social levels that they are surrounded with, how to fight those problems. So that way is, it has been a beautiful program.
Yeah.
And we implemented this project not only in Delhi, but also in rural areas like Mewat, Nu, especially where, these women, they are suppressed very badly. Uh, they are just, asked to, sit at their homes, in the four walls of their homes, cook food, nothing else, and they are tortured, in many ways, that ways. So I mean, working in an area called Nu, which is known for a lot of, I mean, not the good aspects of it, not the developmental aspects of it, known for all kind of bad news, I would say.
Yeah, the
So it was
evils.
a
Yeah.
really good challenge. Yes.
Yeah. So like, were there any other, myths that you were thrown at you, like other than what you already spoke about?
Myths like there are a lot of myths surrounding girl child education also.
Okay.
And
Okay.
if I talk about myths surrounding menstrual hygiene also is there. So many things are there which we have tackled through our programs. And if I talk about myths surrounding the NGO sector itself, people think that NGOs they have a lot of money. One thing is that they think this is one sector which is full of money, full of resources, and we know that how we struggle to pay salaries and which we face on a daily basis. So people they think that people working in the NGO sector they don't deserve to be paid. They are saints. They come without salaries. They do I mean they work 27 24 into 7 hours 365 days in a year. They don't deserve a small weekend also. That are the kind of perceptions that people they have about the NGO sector, and it becomes really difficult sometimes to say no to people. um, Not only this, when we talk about donations, when we talk about resources, if we talk about donating old books, they don't think that whether these books or whether these clothes that we are donating they are worth donating or not, worth wearing or not. So some people that they dump all kind of clutter whatever they had in their houses in the front of the in our office, and we have to do a lot of uh,
Yeah,
we
it's
have to sort
extra
out
work
all the
for
things.
you. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm actually really sad to hear that, because that's not how it is, and I mean it's a struggle. It is a struggle, but it's not right the way people have these perceptions. But so I mean, based on that, like, is there any question or challenge that you would like to leave the next generation, or yeah.
So the question that I would like the youth to think about is that there is a lot of disparity amongst people in this country itself. There are people who are struggling for food, and then there are people who are having a lot of money and they waste a lot of food. If I take example of only food, so there is huge disparity. There is crony capitalism where the rich becomes richer and the poor becomes poorer. So, being the youth of the country, what is the solution that they can think of these problems? If not eliminating these issues, but at least reducing it to a greater extent that people they have respect for each other, they have equal access to equal resources. That is one challenge that I would like to give the youth of this country to think on that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what you said, I mean, that really requires some thinking. So, I really hope, it touches someone, the youth out there, to really do something about it. Yeah. Yeah. And last question would be like, how can the public help you and, your organization?
So the Pala essentially, our main activity still has been education. So
Okay.
I would want that everyone should come forward and educate one child. So each one teach one is one concept that the Pala would like people to think of. Then they can donate towards our activities. We have a lot of options on our website. They can choose whatever option they want to choose, whichever cause they wish to relate to. Besides, right now we are going through a tough phase. We are going through COVID situation. So Dipalya has taken a vow that we'll help children who have lost their parents due to COVID. We'll give them long-term education support. So whoever wants to come forward, please do come forward. They can volunteer for our activities, and Dipalya is open for all kind of youth to come forward and help us in growing our program, help us in raising money as well, so that we are able to reach more and more people and more touch more and more lives.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
So
sure.
please do log in. Please do log in to www.dipala.org for more details on this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. So thank you, thank you so much for having this conversation with us, for really talking about your journey, the experience that you've had. And I really hope that the viewers would enjoy it as much as I did. And it really is inspiring and encouraging for us to like really go out and do something for someone out there. So yeah, thank you so much, Jaswin.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for giving me this opportunity. Hope this podcast will, help people know more about Dipalia and also contribute towards society. Thank
Yeah.
you.